How's it going, everyone? My name is Sherbert, and this is Bert Plays Games, the series where we test out games and give an honest review to help players decide whether or not that game is right for them. In today's video, we'll be reviewing High on Life, a new single-player FPS shooter that came straight from the evil genius of Justin Roiland, who's best known for his co-creation of Rick and Morty. In High on Life, you play as a character who's fresh out of high school with no ambitions other than playing video games. That is until an evil alien drug cartel known as the G3 invades Earth and discovers that humans can be smoked and used as drugs. The G3 will stop at nothing to chase the high of humanity, and it's up to you and your arsenal of talking guns known as Gatlians to team up and become an elite bounty hunter, to hunt down the G3 and stop their galactic drug empire from smoking the human race into extinction. High on Life is a comedic gem, and I had an absolute blast playing through the storyline. The gameplay felt good, fighting bad guys was a riot, and the dark twisted humor brought back memories of when I would play Conker's Bad Fur Day on Nintendo 64. Overall, I had mostly positive things to say about High on Life. One of the biggest pros I had about the game is how absurdly funny it was. It was like playing through an episode of Rick and Morty. I found myself laughing at the wildest, most disturbing stuff and loving every second of it. Never in my life would I think I'd laugh at a psychotic knife with an Australian accent talk about how much he loves stabbing people, but here we are. High on Life had no shortages of jokes, and it made for an enjoyable and fun gaming experience. However, I thought the funniest parts of the game were the subtle jokes you had to pay attention to get. Each joke offered something original to laugh at, and every line was masterfully well written, and the game was entertaining from start to finish. What really surprised me was just how many different voice lines the game had. Every cutscene or character interaction was unique and entertaining. Depending on what weapon you had out, you could get a different interaction by talking with that character. I found myself going up to and talking with random characters just to listen to the voice dialogue. This made the playthrough much more enjoyable, and it felt less like a grind. I didn't feel like I had to just follow the main storyline. Instead, I found myself getting sidetracked, talking to anything and everyone I could just to see what they would say. I never got the same voice line twice, and each interaction was as funny as it was entertaining. I was also very impressed at how much fun the gunfights were. I loved how every weapon had its own use and utility. Be that Kenny and his glob shot that would launch opponents upward, and any follow-up shots would keep them juggling in the air. Or Sweezy, which could stop time inside of her bubble. I loved how every weapon complemented each other, and every gun served its own unique purpose in order to progress through the map. The fights never felt boring or repetitive, and as you progress through the storyline, the mobs would get tougher or wear more armor, resulting in you having to upgrade your weapons in order to keep up. The fighting was fun, fresh, and the combination between shooting and stabbing made you a versatile killing machine. The game had equal parts action and equal parts comedy, and I was impressed by both. Another thing I really enjoyed about the game was the different boss fights. High on Life's storyline is all about hunting down G3's bosses in order to get to the main boss Garmantuous. Each boss fight had its own cutscene and its own unique attack pattern, which meant you had to adapt your opponent's moves and fight accordingly, which was very refreshing. Having just done the Callisto Protocol review where there were almost no bosses to speak of, this was a breath of fresh air, and it was a welcoming sight to see the originality when it came to designing unique and one-of-a-kind bosses to fight. Now the playthrough was a little bit on the short side. The game states that the playthrough time is anywhere between 12 to 14 hours. However, we played on medium difficulty and completed the storyline in just under 6 hours. That being said, after you complete the game, you can still fight and explore all the zones in case you wanted to collect any items you may have missed on the first playthrough, so you can continue playing even though you've beaten the game. I'd like to see an expansion come into the game sometime soon, where they add additional quests or storylines to the playthrough for people who have already beaten the game. Although the gameplay was short, I would have no qualms with playing through the second or third time. I don't think I could ever get tired of shooting Gus's saw blade or Creature's tiny little small children at bad guys. I did have mostly positive things to say about High on Life, but there were also a few negatives to mention. For starters, I was a little disappointed with the lack of different zones to play through. The game only really operates around 3 to 4 zones that you have to revisit multiple times. The maps we played through were beautiful and well made, but I was hoping to see more in variety of map selection, especially since the story takes place on an alien world. Instead, we just cycled through the same maps over and over, which started to feel a little repetitive towards the end. There was also times when I felt like the game went from being funny to just becoming too vulgar. In rare instances, I felt like the game substituted clever and witty writing with toilet humor or shock value in order to gain laughs. There were only a few times when this stuck out to me, but it was noticeable enough to mention in this video. High on Life was a superb game to play. I loved the storyline, the combat was enjoyable, and the overall gaming experience was pleasant, and I would gladly play through the missions again and again just to hear the jokes one more time. I didn't have any expectations when loading into the game for the first time, but was pleasantly surprised at how well everything flowed and how well the game was made. All in all, I would give High on Life a rating of 4.5 out of 5. There really wasn't anything bad about the game, and I found it to be well worth the money. I would encourage anyone to try High on Life, especially if you're a fan of Rick and Morty. If you're looking for a fun and violent way to spend an afternoon, then High on Life is right for you. Well, that's it for this video. Let me know in the comment section down below what game we should review next. Also, I stream right here on YouTube, so be sure to come in and say hi as we collect footage for our next game review. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.